Hi friends. I am Julie. Welcome to the channel Bollywood King. Here in this channel I usually react to different interesting Shahrukh Khan videos. Today I am going to watch the NDTV program with the participation of Shahrukh Khan and Karan Johar where their movie Kang, marriages, infidelity were discussed. It should be very interesting video. I hope you will enjoy the video. Let's start without losing any time.
Hello and a very warm welcome to a special edition of We the People. Indians, they say, are obsessed with weddings. The search for a suitable boy may even be described as one of our national pastimes. But what happens after the wedding becomes a marriage? Are we uncomfortable about looking at the institution of marriage honestly and starkly? Are we uncomfortable at looking at the grey zone that often defines the relationship that exists between a man and a woman? Uncomfortable things that we all know exist but don't like looking in the eye. Infidelity, incompatibility, the end of passion, the end of desire, friendship versus love, that perennial conflict that all of us have gone through at one point or the other. Well, if cinema holds up a mirror to the way we live, then Bollywood for sure is reflecting these changing times. The latest, and some would say ironic offering, one of the most talked about films in these past few months, Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, has ironically come from the film director who made the Happily Ever After family famous to begin with, Karan Johar. We're using Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna as a starting point to debate on this program this evening whether the age of the conventional marriage is finished in modern India. Let me introduce our panel, starting with the one person who needs no introduction, India's heartthrob, Shahrukh Khan, who plays, much to the annoyance of some of the people here, an adulterous husband in Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, and rather to put a more positive spin on it, who finds love outside of marriage in the film. Sitting right next to him, Karan Johar, who feels very annoyed when people say that Karan Johar has broken the Karan Johar mold, because how do two films define a candy floss mold to begin with? But even so, many boundaries being pushed, I thought, when I saw the film last night for a mainstream Hindi film. Next to Karan Johar, Shobha Day, always outspoken, a commentator on our times, but most interestingly in this context, the author of a book called Spouse, which I have read, and a strong advocator of the institution of marriage. Right next to her, Dr. Anjali Chhabria, who meets people of the kind that Shahrukh Khan plays in his film every day, but she doesn't tell them to leave. She doesn't tell them to walk out. Next to Shahrukh, Anupam Mittal, who actually founded one of the most successful websites in India. It's called Shadi.com. It's where you go if you want to get married and you just don't meet people in real life. And next to him is Sunita Menon, tarot card reader, but also meets many unhappy people who think is there ill fortune in their cards. What does she tell them when they bring their unhappy personal lives to Sunita? And of course an audience here, some of whom have seen the film, some of whom haven't seen the film, but everybody has a view on love, relationship and marriage. Let's start with Shahrukh. One of the things I found interesting actually just watching the film was that of all the lead characters, you're the only one who actually is married in real life. For actors who sort of draw upon real life experiences to play out their parts, I presume you weren't method acting in this film.
See, let me first say I'm an outsider in this program.
In what sense?
In terms of जो भी जनता चाहती है कि शादी होनी चाहिए तो मैं भी वही चाहता हूँ. अगर चाहती है शादी नहीं होनी चाहिए तो मैं भी वही चाहता हूँ. मैं थाली का बैंगन हूँ. I'm an actor. So wherever a director tells me to play a role, I do it. And also I would like to make it very clear that unfortunately most of the roles that I do are not really drawn from real life. I mean, the last time I had a mustache and wore a turban was when I was 6 years old. So it's not something that I really take on and build from. Normally a director's take, director's vision, director's words. I try to as an actor because I'm an observer of human beings. I'm an observer of people around me. I spend 90% of my day just looking at people, understanding, with a lot of compassion and not no judgment. I'm like, okay, this gentleman has a problem, or not you per se. I'm not Sunita, so I can't tell that. But this gentleman has a problem. I look at it, and I always look at it from the point of view that I can use it, essay it into a role in a film. So Dev is a mixture of a lot of people. I don't think you'll ever find a perfect Dev who's so cynical, so black, with a fantastic fashionable limp.
Which he forgets sometimes, actually. When he's happy, he forgets the limp.
I mean, that's a dream sequence.
It's a dream sequence, sorry. It's a dream
That's
sequence.
our format. We can't run away from it. How much can we, actually?
You know, I tried doing Mithra with a limp, and it looked quite awful.
But how plausible was the situation for you? I understand that, you don't have to be the part you play personally,
Yeah.
but how plausible was it for you that there's this man, his marriage seems to have gone sour, there's nothing overtly wrong with it, but there's incompatibility, there's unhappiness, and he finds greater passion outside of it.
You see, as a man, I mean, and I'd like to, say it quite universally, men do find many a times passion outside their marriage. I mean, it's at least we hear more of it, and we accept it more also. You know, the problem in this film, or the point of discussion is, I think people are not reacting to Dev being like that. It is they're reacting to Maya being like that, which is unfortunate. I think that is the truth of the matter. They are sort of reflecting it upon Dev. कि उसने भी अपने बेटे को छोड़ दिया, उसने ये कर दिया, गलत है. But I think somewhere down the line, the essence, what I understand, and when I've heard the film, I've seen it a couple of times, I think it is the shocking part, or the disagreeing part with Dev, and unreality of Dev, कि ऐसा थोड़ी ना होता है, ऐसा करना नहीं चाहिए. Because from childhood, we are taught a word in Urdu, which is, or Hindi, it is nibhana. You will have your parent tell you that, your grandparent tell you that. I'm a parent myself, and somewhere down the line, I've already started telling my son and daughter कि यार निभाना पड़ता है, दुनियादारी निभानी पड़ती है, रिश्ते निभाने पड़ते हैं, और सबसे ज़्यादा शादी निभानी पड़ती है. And I made a film called चलते चलते, which was about give it a year and a half before you decide to break up, because थोड़ा निभाना ज़रूरी होता है. So all these things, how plausible is Dev? It is as plausible as any Hindi film commercial actor to be a character that has been shown. How implausible is it? I think he's not very far removed from a lot of lives and a lot of actual guys, I know, but we don't accept it. We don't like to hear it, and I think the reflection of Dev is in Maya, which we accept the least, a woman taking a decision like this. I mean, it is embarrassing to us that my sister's going to do this, my wife's going to do this. It does sound a little embarrassing in this, the social structure in our country at least.
Shahrukh Khan is so right. Actually, it was Maya's decision that really disturbed everybody and was considered unacceptable. And it is so sad.
Well, Karan, let me come to you, because it's interesting what Shahrukh said, because the part that Amitabh Bachchan actually plays in this film, which is, of this philandering larger-than-life man, but of course he's not really philandering because his wife has died. I wonder whether a woman could have played that part, and we would accept it. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the films, coming from you, this film, that's what everybody's really surprised about. This man who likes creating happy families, the sprawling joint family, the family values sort of portal of Hindi cinema has gone with this kind of theme. Of course, you're going to hear the usual. You're not married, how do you know? You've told me many stories about women just randomly ringing your doorbell and saying, what have you done, Karan? I mean,
well, I really don't know what I've done. I'm quite shocked and amazed that I've opened this Pandora's box, as I was discussing with Shobha earlier. Actually, I made this film I was at my state of mind. I mean, when I made Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, it was when I was right out of college, and I felt this bookish, feelings of first love and heartbreak. And then, I felt great reverence for my parents and great regard and respect for everything they'd given me after I had met with success. I made Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Kalona was my fear of death. I feared losing a member of my family, which I eventually did. And that was a reflection of my state of mind then. Then I was on my own for 2 years, and I spent a lot of time with people. I traveled a lot. And suddenly I found myself only listening to people's, and I'm fortunately one of those men who have friends, as female friends and male friends. So I've had the opportunity of listening to both sides of the story. And all I ever did was listen to people's marriage woes, listen to their problems, their loveless existence, their passionless marriage, and all I kept doing was, and one day I
was one of your closest friends sitting next to you. Yeah.
No.
But he's not saying.
Well, you see, as I said, I was traveling.
Not you.
He was traveling away from my house.
No, never him. I was traveling, so I was away from Shahrukh and Gauri, who I really believe are one of the few very happily married couples. And I'm not just saying that because he's on my left. I didn't realize that I was kind of opening this entire kind of this gamut of discussion. As I was telling you, I was standing up the first day I went to see my own film it was a paid preview at IMAX, and I was standing, waiting that people are going to come out and say things to me. And I got a tap on my shoulder. A very warm, wonderful-looking woman tapped me, and she looked at me and she said. She just didn't say anything for about 2 seconds. I stared at her and I said, "Ji, aapne picture dekha?" So she said, "Haan." So I got a little perturbed by her. She said, मैं अपनी बेटी को आउटिंग के लिए ले गई थी. एक हफ्ते पहले उसके पति ने उसे छोड़ दिया और ये आउटिंग के लिए मैंने ये पिक्चर उसे दिखाया. So I see, अब देखो बेबी कितना रो रही है. So I looked around to find this baby who was crying, and there was a poor baby who was crying by baby being a very old baby actually. Yes. And of course, it's baby to the mother and Baba to my mother. So baby had really become the pillar, poor thing, and and she said, अभी बताइए उसको. So I said, मैं क्या बताऊं, आपको पता नहीं था फिल्म की कहानी क्या है. So she said, मुझे क्या, मैं आपकी पिक्चर में देखती हूँ, कभी खुशी कभी गम, वहाँ आरती होती है, पेरेंट्स होते हैं, वहाँ अच्छे लोकेशन होते हैं, कितने अच्छे कपड़े पहनते हैं, शादी उनके साथ, ये पिक्चर आपने बनाई. So I said, ये आजकल जो हो रहा है पर हमें क्यों देखना है, जो घर पे हो रहा है वो हम बाहर आके क्यों देखें. So I said, that suddenly I understood that maybe there are some home truths. There are some situations, some circumstances that people want to be in denial for, and not probably watch on a mainstream film.
Shobha, let me get you in now. You saw the film last night, I know. I did too. Did you feel that it's pushing those home truths onto a public space that we don't like looking at?
I thought it's an extraordinary film coming from Karan, particularly. Because television has dealt with this subject in a very upfront way for over 10 years. And nobody has blinked. But he has certainly pushed the boundaries because he makes blockbusters about the great Indian family. So to begin with, it's broken through a mold. It's broken through several myths that we have about ourselves. And for me, the most interesting character was not Maya, but Priti, because she represents Riya. Because she represents in many ways the careerist bitch, if I may use an impolite word, but who emerges with a different kind of perspective in the second half of the film. But someone who's willing to sacrifice everything, who's cold to her husband, an indifferent mother, uncaring, all because she's chasing career goals. What this suggested to me was that women today are playing a very proactive role within marriage. Now, instead of Kadwa Chauth, which we've glorified in all our previous films, here we have Kadwa truths, and they're making people very uncomfortable because it's not a comfort zone. It's not a feel-good film at all. This film is not a lollipop you can suck through for 3 hours and come out of it feeling, oh, what a sweet film. It is not that.
But I think it is a feel-good film that was about very serious issue.
And which is why I think it was very courageous of Karan to have taken this position.
I want to get deeper.
I'm very happy that he did make a film like this, which doesn't kind of pull back the punches.
Shahrukh, if I can come back to you, what has been the response that you've got from people? Because in some ways, you are also sort of the poster boy of the happy Indian family in real life. In real life, I mean, everybody says that you're a happily married man. There are the occasional sort of speculations on your sexuality, which you've been asked 100 questions about. But other than that, no rumor has really stuck. So you are widely perceived to be, Shahrukh is happy with Gauri. And then you play this person who actually finds greater love and you walk out. Is that something, I mean, I'm curious to know, how did Gauri see the film? Did she sort of see it in the same way? She loved it.
I think she loved it, yeah, because she very clearly felt it's a different film, and there is an enjoyment in the cynicism of cinema. First, let's not take cinema too seriously, to be very honest. At least the kind of cinema that we are talking about, it's entertainment. Sometimes you have to find entertainment in sadness, sometimes in happiness, just complete tomfoolery, idiotic. Sometimes, perhaps issue-raising films like Kabhi Alvida. Like when you asked me that Gauri liked it, I liked it. I think it's different. It's
so how have people reacted?
See, a lot of people have turned around and they have said that I look fresh. Some people say I look old. Some people say I have a good limp. See, I don't go by...
I think Shahrukh Khan looked incredibly handsome and sexy in that film.
What about your affair in the film? How have people reacted to that?
See, I'm famous for always. In the last 16 years, I've done about 50 films. And out of that 35 films, I'm only running after other people's wives or girlfriends. So this is not any run away from me. I mean, it's not like really breaking the mold. I am still running after somebody else's wife. Whether you take... Yes boss, you take Koila, you take Dil To Pagal, all ladies who are getting married or in Dil Wale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. Kuch hota hai, always end up in the end. In this film I end up at the interval. I mean,
All right, let's get Anjali Chhabria in. You deal with people like this, and it's interesting. I mean, there are actually shades of difference here. Shobha says this happens all the time. We just don't like looking at it. Shahrukh says this is fiction. Don't mix fiction with fact. I mean, it may be true for some people. It's just because you're playing it, it's not true for you. How much of this do you encounter, and what do you say to people who go through this?
See, I think what happens is, if I can comment on the film, I think the message was not very clear. Because the message was for a very intelligent audience who can say that, okay, these things happen, but people do not leave their marriages. I've had cases, you know, after the movie, I had a couple who was flown in from wherever, and in the middle of their counseling, they see the movie and the wife comes and says, I don't want to continue my marriage any longer because Amitabh Bachchan told his daughter-in-law, go with the love that you get. So there is a certain audience who is not intelligent enough to understand this message.
So what's wrong with that? I mean, just asking, you're saying it's the wrong message.
No, I'll tell you what's
I thought
wrong
it was the
with that.
best scene in the film, actually.
Yes, but they have 2 kids, okay, and one kid is 15 years old and the other kid is 10 years old. And
Yeah, you want to come in there, Shah?
Sure.
I mean, with due respect, and is this a show where we fight with each other?
If you want to. If you want
But I
to.
should be decent. I'm not fighting. I'm not the fighting types.
Yeah.
I just love all the women. But
Thanks,
just one
Shahrukh.
thing. One, this film cannot give you a clear message. It is not meant to give you a message.
Right.
One, not for any other reason. I'm not deriding what you're saying. The idea is, in a film like this, when Karan saw the film and he said, "यार लोग जो हैं खुश नहीं आ रहे, इस film में कोई खुशी नहीं होगी." There is not going to be any happiness in this film.
Right.
It is about relationships which are very individual. None of us on this panel, and I'm sure all of us will agree, understand relationships different than ours maybe. हमको अपने भी समझ नहीं आते काफी सारे. So the whole idea is, it is a very strange kind of a situation. Normally films have an end, and they say happy ending, सब जीत गए, cricket match जीत गया India, or लड़के को लड़की मिल गई. But in this film, we could not. Wherever this couple goes, is somehow going to be perceived as, is this the right end? This does not have a glorific ending. It doesn't glorify anything.
Let me just.
And second part, that lady, with due respect, she's using Mr. Bachchan's line as an excuse. She was anyway going to leave.
One second. Let me.
Okay, I'll just let Anjali get a word in and then I'll get to Karan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
See, the thing is that what I'm saying is, maybe she's using Mr. Bachchan's word. But what I'm saying is that we people have a larger than life responsibility. When I say we people, I'm talking about you people. So when you say something, when you say cinema is to be taken lightly, unfortunately in India, cinema is not taken lightly. So people take it very seriously. And coming from someone like Karan Johar, who I was telling him he should contest politics now, you know, he's become larger than life himself. But the thing is that the message that he gives, people go for a message.
But actually, Anjali, if you see that scene very carefully, Mr. Bachchan's advice to Rani doesn't have a child in the film A, and what he says, if you hear his dialogue very carefully, I think actually I agree with you, it was one of the most important scenes in the film. He says, मेरे बेटे को छोड़ दो, तुम उसे प्यार नहीं करती, उसके साथ रह के तुम उसे किसी और के प्यार से दूर कर रही हो और अपने आप को भी इन अधूरे रिश्तों से किसी को खुशी नहीं मिल सकती. Now he says to a woman who doesn't have a child, who's in a passionless existence, who's unhappy, he is going to go on and on and on, loving a woman who doesn't love him back. She's denying him of true love, which he eventually gets 3 years
Can I just hold you all there? I'm actually sitting next to somebody who walked out of a marriage, and I just want to hear your deep, right? Hi, and thanks for sharing your story with us. Tell us your story. You had an arranged marriage.
It was an arranged marriage, yes. Initially, it took off on a very smooth note, and somewhere down the line, like Karan said earlier, I mean, incompatibility.
How did you meet your wife? Not through Shadi.com.
No.
How did you meet her? Grandparents, family, that
Family. We had family who knew the girl's family, and they approached us. We met. We met a couple of times. We exchanged promises and stuff like that, and somewhere down the line after the marriage, I guess 2 or 3 months after the marriage, when we were just incompatible, it didn't kind of work out. In spite of putting in efforts to
How long did you remain married?
we were married for about 2 years, but we stayed together for about 8-9 months. Yeah. So, and going back to what Shahrukh said, at a point, I mean, we were actually in the process of nibhana padta hai. That sort of a thing. So, but in spite of that, it didn't kind of work out.
When you say incompatible, did you just feel like I could be happier than this? Or was there something just wrong in it?
I guess we weren't looking at things eye to eye. I mean, there were times when we were probably driving down Marine Drive or something like that, and she would look out of her window, and I would probably look straight, keep driving straight, and there was no communication. We would probably go to a restaurant for a drink or two, and she would just look around and...
And Shobha, you wanted to come into the conversation now, yeah?
He's hit upon a very, very important word which has been underrated, particularly in the Indian context, which is communication. And in the old days, there was no question of communication. I mean, it was something so beyond a woman's expectations that communications, don't be ridiculous. What communication? Today, most Hindi cinema, including Karan's previous films, have questioned that. Not just that, but the whole business of sacrifice being glorified, that no matter, it's a non-communicative, loveless, passionless marriage, but a woman must sacrifice for the larger interests of society, family, children, stability, and the onus has always been on a woman. And in my own experience, after writing Spouse, people expect me to be some kind of an expert on the subject, and complete strangers walk up to me at various points anywhere in the world and start telling me the story of their lives, their marital lives. But what the word that frequently comes up, which didn't 10 years ago, is communication. So I think we've really hit upon something there, that the need for communication,
to be able to
the
talk.
need to be able to
and
talk.
Shahrukh, if you look at Chalte Chalte, I mean, that was about a couple that was fighting and you said, give it a year and it kind of ironed out, right? And this is very different. Now, you hear a story like this, and in some ways the focus, unfortunately, keeps going back to you, because people are not good at separating the image from the person. Now, Anjali was saying before the show started rolling, you were saying, I'm going to ask Shahrukh, if this happened to him, would he leave his kids?
I'll tell you what,
right?
this is a question that somebody from New York asked me this morning.
What was the question?
That would Shahrukh leave his son and walk out and say, you know, if you can forgive me, forgive me.
But why
so,
would he do that? He's in such a...
No, in the sense that so easily, you know.
No, I would like to tell you, no. Categorically, no.
No means what? If this happened
not,
to you, you would not do it.
No, I would not be able to leave my son or my daughter or my family. No.
But one
and when I hear
understanding that my protagonist never wanted to leave, he got thrown out.
Which is what I was going to come to
nobody
later.
understanding that.
Okay,
we are
once
so
again,
wave out.
Karan, let me just get Shahrukh. Shobha, 1 second, sorry. I just want to get Shahrukh to just say that you were actually pretty emphatic that if this situation replicated itself in your actual life, you would not be able
to make it clear if this replicated.
Yes.
First, I'm very sad. Like, I'm sitting here. An imagery of a husband driving and a wife looking out of a window to a cinema person is outstanding. There's a whole story out of it. I'm sorry, I'm not making a story out of it. I just felt very sad.
Yeah.
Let me also clarify, Sonia, I'm feeling very guilty on the other people. In no which way I am propagating that just for a good time. You know, you can hear this emotion in his voice when he's talking about that. He's just saying a simple line like, you're incompatible. And there's a lot of sadness in it. But my whole idea is that unless if there is no reason, I am in no which way saying to anyone, please leave your families. No. And even I am saying it now, when she asks me, I would never leave my son.
All right. On that note, 1 second, we need to actually take a break. We haven't heard from Sunita and Anupam yet. But it's interesting what you said. You said they didn't leave. They actually got thrown out. I wanted to ask you why that's the case. Because suppose you do find love and you want to leave. Should you leave or should you not? You said it isn't just for a good time. Yet, one of the home truths that Shobha's talking about is sometimes people just do want sex on the side, fun on the side. How do you deal with those home truths? We'll come back to our special edition of We the People in just a few minutes. Welcome back. You're watching this special edition of We the People. We're taking a stark look at the institution of the modern marriage. Perhaps one of the reasons that Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna is so talked about is not just because one didn't expect this from Karan Johar, but because we're all actually obsessed in different ways with the anatomy of relationships. In the end, it is one of the things that defines us the most. Before I go back to our panel, I want to talk to somebody, another person who actually walked out of her marriage. And Shahrukh made this point about how society tends to look at women just that much more harshly. Priya, tell us your story.
Well, I was married for 13 years.
13 years?
Yes, and I have 2 children, 2 gorgeous children. And I walked out of the marriage. But it was just happy for a year. And after that, it was very, very painful. The person I was married to was just not cut out for marriage. But I came from a very conventional family and was asked to stick it out. And, with the mind frame, even though I was convent educated, that, जिस घर पे डोली गई है, वहाँ से अर्थी उठेगी. And I stuck it out. And the person I was married to is just not, he's not meant to be married. He doesn't know how to value a woman. And didn't want the children either. So
the kids are with you now? Yes.
And Sunita, right in front of me, helped me through it. Mohan Jekar was my lawyer. I was a millionaire's daughter, married to a multi-millionaire, and left penniless in the city with 2 children. And I fought for 3.5 years.
And are you happier today?
Very happy. I am professionally working. Sorry about the emotions. I am a fashion designer.
That's a very emotional story because I've seen, the first time I saw Priya Avasthi, she came to me with bruises on the face, and she couldn't get an appointment with me. As usual, I was not available and whatever, and then she just barged into my office, and with these bruises, immediately I knew that something was wrong. And it was around 8 in the evening, and I saw this woman battered completely and just looking at me and scared to go home. And I didn't know what to do because I had to give her hope. And I said, you have to go back, make it work. Try and understand his personality and character and all of that. And I knew her for almost, 5 years. And then I just saw a helpless, convent-educated housewife being transformed into a tigress, literally. In the sense, it was amazing to watch the change. I very subtly helped her, held her hands, but I couldn't do much because the family was very powerful.
Did you ever initially say, try to stay on, try and work it out? Even though you knew she was being hit?
Yes, and I knew that,
Why did you say that? Why was just violence not reason enough to walk out immediately? That seems more straightforward.
Because of the kids.
Because of?
The kids. And she had no money. She was economically not independent. Where would she go? She asked me, where do I go? In fact, once I joked about it, if I had a large house, I'd call you. Please stay with me. Because I knew she'd go back home and get hit. But I didn't know what else to do. So, I would say, come to my office. She'd come at 8:30 in the office and just sit there because she was so scared.
Shahrukh, you said something about if the situation ever replicate, not the domestic violence one, but if the situation of being attracted to somebody outside your relationship happened to you in real life, you would never be able to leave your children. Now, many people believe that children become sort of one of those institutions against which people then sacrifice their own personal happiness. Does that seem reasonable?
I think it's a universal truth. You can't deny that, even if we take an intellectual stand and say, no, maybe it is for betterment of the children if we leave. But, say in her case or in lots of cases, including my own, I would sacrifice a lot of me for my children, the happiness, everything becomes so-called happiness, etc. when it comes to children. Also, I would like to point out that, everyone in this film, again, turns around and looks at the 3 men characters. There's Sam, there's Dave, and there's Rishi. But do you realize that there are 2 women in this film? One who is not as close to her story, but who is living with a cynical, black, limping, dirty, abusive man.
Who becomes an angel the moment he meets another woman who he likes.
Yes, and physically he's not abusing Preeti because she wouldn't allow him. She is a strong character, but she's living through this. She takes a decision, slaps him and leaves him. There is another woman who is living through another sort of a relationship which can become, not in our film, a busy husband who comes and says, darling, I love you, let's go out for dinner. But the life doesn't seem to be what she wants. In this, if you see the film in this context, that both women actually took a step and decided to leave their marriages because a woman has the right to decide and say. You would not see it with so much stress, or, as a matter of fact, perhaps is that the truth? That are we looking at it with so much stress and controversy because women are taking decisions in this film?
Okay.
You have to look at it from this point of view.
It's an interesting thought.
He talks so smoothly and brilliantly. Listening him is like a therapy.
To take it forward, Shobha, and pick up on what Karan said before we went into the break, which was these 2 actually got thrown out of their marriages. They fall in love with somebody else, they go back and confess. They think the relationship's going to be over, and then they get thrown out. Chances are in real life that may not happen. A lot of people look the other way. A lot of people believe in second chances, third chances, all of that. Did you feel, and I'm asking you this first and then I'll come to Karan, did you feel that in that sense, there was a kind of defensiveness about the infidelity? There was the marriage was still the prime institution. If they had been forgiven, they would have stayed.
No, but I feel very strongly that the film says two very important things. One, Preeti can afford to throw her husband out because it's her home. Had it not been her home, had she not been the person with the big bucks, the marriage, the story would have been a totally different story altogether. He would have stayed and said, you like it or you can take it, you can leave it or lump it, you know, I'm not going. I mean, you handle it any which way you want to, which is what happens 90% of the time. The second most important thing is that both the marriages are not abusive marriages. The men are not drunks. They're not beating their wives. So in our society, in the conditioning,
dark, bitter character.
no, that's fine, but that's not considered justification enough in our cultural context. You have to have a very good reason to walk out of your marriage. Normally, it's something like a very abusive marriage, drunkenness, desertion, or something that's considered serious enough by society. But mere incompatibility or an aspiration that a marriage is disappointing you, or even sort of irreconcilable differences, is not seen in India as reason enough to abandon your family. And of course, the second the turning point for me in the film, the most important advice in the film, the salah that's given, not the saza, is when Amitabh tells her to walk out on his son. I think when I left the movie hall, there were at least 5 people talking between themselves who said, बाप कभी बेटे को ऐसे अपने बहू के ऐसे कभी कह सकता है क्या? And I think Indian audiences are going to find that the most shocking piece of advice ever given by a father-in-law.
I thought that was the most radical part of the film, actually.
I was fine with it, but it was, for me, the most provocative line in the film.
What I believe was the most sensible thing a man, a worldly man in that situation, and especially on his deathbed, where you feel you can give this unsolicited advice, and that's what he gives his daughter-in-law. And he says the most practical thing. We come from.
Why did they have to be thrown out? I mean, it's the directors, of course. It's your vision as you imagine it, but why did you feel that they had to be thrown out of their marriage? Why did you feel there couldn't be 2 people who'd actually found greater love outside of the marriage, and therefore,
simply because,
why couldn't that conversation be going back home and saying, as he almost does at that dinner that they have at Amitabh Bachchan's house, I've met somebody else. I'm sorry, I tried very hard, but I've met somebody else.
You see, there are 2 junctures. If you go back to the film, and if you go it's very carefully thought over in terms of when she sits on the bench right at the beginning, she tells Shahrukh, she says that there's a reason I've known, Sam and Rishi ever since I can remember. After I lost my parents, they were family to me. So there is from Maya's end a sense of obligation that is there. There is a layer that is running right through. Sure. Now when Amitabh Bachchan gives her this advice and says, leave my son, you don't love him, she walks out. She sits next to her husband, who breaks down and says, thank God I have you. I've lost my father, I have nobody, thank God I have, because she knows he's in that sense a bit of a child. That's how I played him. He's a bit of a child in any case. He's immature.
Now here's what the critics will say to you, Karan. They would say you tried to deal with infidelity, but you actually shied away from it.
No, I didn't, because see the situation, Barkha. See what it is. She feels obligated. He has nobody. He turns to her. She doesn't know at that juncture. She feels that maybe, just maybe, that he would need her emotionally. Okay. Similarly, Shahrukh has a 6-year-old son in the film. So he cannot, just for the sake of the child's happiness, just walk out because he's found love outside his marriage. I did not. So they take a call. They sit on that bench. They weep it out, cry and say that we want to go back because we think it's the right thing to do. I or you may not think so, but my characters in those circumstances did definitely think that. Okay. They went back and got thrown out.
All right, let me get Anupam Mittal, who hasn't spoken at all. How many people have got married through Shaadi.com so far?
Oh God, that's hard to determine because not everybody comes back and lets us know. But it runs in the hundreds of thousands.
And it's a modern day version of the arranged marriage, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, it's really interesting. I mean, I travel a lot between London, New York, and Bombay, and there isn't a place that I've been to where I haven't met people who've met through Shaadi.com and gotten married. Now, Shaadi.com itself is a new phenomenon. It's only been around a few years, so it's early to say whether it's working in the long term, so to speak.
Are you married?
But no, I'm not. Like they say, right? Just
join the gang. You can put my name on that website. But no, more seriously, why not?
Because you're an undertaker, you don't have to be dead, right?
No, but why aren't you married? The favorite Indian question. Why aren't you married?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think marriage is a formula that you just fit into everybody's life at a certain time or age. I think it's different for different people. There's a right time for certain people to marry. For some people, marriage is, I wouldn't recommend marriage at all. And for certain people, it happens at a certain age. For me, I haven't felt ready as yet.
I completely agree with what he said.
Because of work, because of traveling, because of other pressures. But I think I'm getting around to it. And after I've heard this entire panel discussions, I'll decide whether I should get married.
And that would be taking cinema really too seriously. But Shahrukh, let
No, I do want to.
Sure. When people apply, would you tell a couple that don't marry? You not say
No. So that's it's interesting, right? It's interesting. A lot of if you look into research, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who can speak more knowledgeably about this here. But a lot of times, two people who have a lot of similar interests seem to click and work very well. And a lot of times, people who have nothing in common seem to work very well. So it's very hard again to say, listen, this is what works, and this is what a perfect marriage is made of. We know a few things. We know communication is important. We know compatibility is key, to your point. I think another point needs to be thrown in, and this actually raises the question about why do Indian marriages work more, right? Community is very important. And as far as Eastern wedding goes, as far as Indian marriages goes, our communities are very involved. And so it becomes all the more difficult to leave the other person, because you're not only disappointing that person, exactly, you've got two families wedded to each other.
Sorry, I just want to interject because we're talking, but there is a big problem there is with certain women who reach a certain stage. It's all issues put aside, the need to be married because you feel you're losing out on time,
on the biological
or
clock,
your biological clock is ticking,
or the preety chooses to be single.
Pressure that that society gives you. I feel, and I put my hats out to those women who are single women, who are in successful careers, who are financially independent and don't want to get married because they haven't found the right person. I respect that woman. Where is the need to be married? I mean, it's not part of your identity. If you're just happy outside of the institution and you can support yourself, why feel the pressure that I'm 32?
Do you feel it's a redundant institution?
Well, I don't think so. I think it's an institution that's available, it's accessible. Visit it at your own risk, and also at your own mindset or your frame of mind at that time. If you feel it's the right person you met, you feel you want to spend the rest of that life. But I don't know why there is this tremendous pressure on a certain section, either parental pressure or society peer pressure, whatever you put that pressure. There is, I believe, I've met lots of women, 30, 31, 32, 34, 35, some even I feel that, oh my God, I don't have a spouse. I feel I must be married. It's a thing to do. Marriage is a status. It's not your identity.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to get Shahrukh in for a second. Shahrukh, to go back to your own life. In some ways, the big cliche is that people who are in Hollywood or Bollywood, their marriages and their relationships come under the kind of scrutiny that actually no other marriage is ever subjected to. You're constantly in the glare of public light. There are women throwing themselves at you.
Where?
Oh my God. This was hilarious.
Don't be careful what you ask for. but there are. I mean, we've seen how people react to you. There's constant sort of, there's the film magazines, what they write, they speculate on relationships, the aura of suspicion, which can actually destroy a marriage, even when nothing's happening. I'm just curious to know how in your own life, because I know that's something everybody will want to know, whether that's a pressure you felt, because you didn't do the arranged marriage route. You were sort of I fell in love with my childhood sweetheart and we're still married, and you actually hold out the hope for a happily ever after. But this kind of scrutiny, the thing of being an actor, how is being an actor reconciled with being a husband?
I spread the rumor I'm gay.
That wasn't your rumor. I thought.
Oh my God. This was more than hilarious.
I thought it was Karan.
You know me. That's where the rumor came from.
I just wanted, I mean, it's very true.
Yeah.
But let me again just make it very clear from a point of view of a person who I think is now a little alienated from the real harsh happenings of life. Sitting here on this panel, when I hear Shobha say what she said, I heard the lady here and I've heard him. I hear him and, Sunita and everyone. Karan is from my fraternity, so I'm not including him. I do suddenly realize that the issues normal people have, maybe I'm no longer normal. So I perhaps have no
right. You're sheltered from all that.
Not only sheltered, I think I can take this, make a movie about it. Without perhaps I have knowledge because I'm married. I have knowledge. I'm a middle class boy. I've grown up in that world. But perhaps I'm not in touch with a lot of things that have happened. So I would like to say that somewhere down the line, I'll answer the question of being under scrutiny. Has its own 100% had its own problem. But having said that, even not having first-hand knowledge and understanding of people's marriages, and I accept that as an actor. That's why in the beginning of the program I said that I don't believe in my character. I don't know enough of my character. And I'm being honest enough to say that. I can build on it. I can take examples. I know a lot of friends. But again, when it comes down to a harsh reality and somebody tells me a man has beaten up his wife, I've never seen it. I've never seen it. And I'm scared. I feel like crying right now. But I get disturbed about this. God, I can do it in the film. I can beat up a wife or be a lawyer to a beaten up wife. And play it perhaps okay, but not real. I think all this considered, marriage is a very, very personal issue, which he just said, that you can't really decide who works out with who. And that is why it is a point of a lot of discussion, stress and breakups. You never know who you marry and how it turns out. I may be lucky enough to have married my childhood sweetheart. I've also nibhawed a little in my own way. My wife has also nibhawed a lot. Being the wife of a movie star, as you said, like a lot of girls.
It's very difficult.
It is difficult. So, wo bhi nibha rahi hai. It's not that we've all taken stands like we do in the film ki out. It doesn't work out like this. We are trying to work out, and yes, you have to make an effort.
And how do you deal with that scrutiny, or how have you dealt with it in your own life?
See, now I'm used to it.
But earlier, when it was still
yes, it was stressful. I mean, it does create that a finger of suspicion, a full hand, actually a full body of suspicion towards you at times. See, my daughter even now turns on and says, "Why are you hugging Preeti auntie?" I can't.
And what do you say?
I say I like hugging Preeti auntie.
Which is sort of dangerous advice, actually, a push to.
How sweetly he imitated his daughter. But I am still recovering from the moment when he said he felt like crying after the story of a woman beaten by her husband. He has the biggest heart in the world, which is full of compassion.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear a little more from this audience. Also, why Anjali is so upset at Karan's film. We'll ask her that after the break. Welcome back. You're watching We the People. We're looking at the anatomy of a marriage, if there is such a thing, because I think one of the points being made is that it is so deeply individual, that there is no one truth that applies for anybody. Before we go back to our panel, let's just hear from people. We've heard many cynical stories. Now, how about a happily married couple? We've got Shahrukh Khan speaking of a marriage, and now finally we have two people here. Tell us your story. How long have both of you been married?
Thanks, Varka. Actually, I was waiting for my turn. I was just listening to all the comments and I just didn't agree with most of what people were saying. I married at 25. I'm 50. We just celebrated our silver wedding in May. And we are both very, very happily married.
And you've never had a fight? You've never driven down Marine Drive with nothing to say to each other?
Oh, we've had plenty of fights. But remember one thing, if you have a fight, you first hold hands. And then you fight. It won't go very far. We are two different individuals and there's bound to be a difference of opinion. But that's what the whole thing is all about. You have to keep communicating. You have to continue every day. In fact, you don't go to bed without making it up. You see.
Never sleep on a fight.
Never sleep on a fight.
Okay. Let me just hear whether she actually sees this the same way.
Very true.
You do?
Yes.
So let me ask you, something like what happened in the film happened in your marriage. If your husband cheated on you, have you ever thought of that? Have you ever considered that possibility?
I don't think he would ever have it.
Hold hand.
I won't let him run away.
But seriously, it's never crossed your mind. No, that's okay. Has it ever crossed your mind that your partner may like somebody else better for one night, for 2 nights, for a week, for 6 months?
Could be.
And then?
I would still stick on.
You would still stick on?
Yes.
And why is
It was
that?
a commitment made on our wedding day. Come what may. In good times and in bad.
So infidelity isn't a reason enough for you to walk out?
Not at all. What's the...
I want to ask you now to...
I'll have to say something to that. I have to remember that if I go out, she's also free to go out. So it's a two-way street, and if you're going to last this long, you have to be careful with what you do. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that story. Now, Anjali, that's a happy story. But there aren't always happy stories. There aren't always people who believe that let my partner cheat on me, I'll stay no matter what, I'll just hold his hand or her hand. Life isn't that simple. I mean, bravo to them and more power to them, more power to all the happy marriages, but it isn't always like that, is it? What's your problem with Karan's film?
Okay, I'm reflecting what people have been sharing with me.
Okay.
And that's people all over the world.
Yeah.
I think what he shows, Shahrukh and Rani in the movie, they are like two unhappy people. They're unhappy because of the situation. They're married to two relatively strong and happy people who are also in the same situation, but who are using positivity to get out of the situation. Like Preeti is working just because she doesn't attend her children's open house. Doesn't mean she's a bad mother. She doesn't have the time to communicate with her husband because she's playing the man. As Abhishek is doing all that he can, all those antics that he's doing. Now they are showing that just because once or twice he has told her that, okay, you can't have a kid. I'm not saying that's not a bad reason. Or Shahrukh has had a problem in the movie. Instead of solving their problems, they walk out of the marriage. They come back, they say, they own up to their spouses that, okay, this is what we did. The spouses ask them to get out and they get out. Why don't they try harder over there?
Alright, let me just
Sorry. Why don't you try harder? Of course you can try.
You can't just hold on to the door and say,
No,
please,
you
hold the hand, remember? Hold the hand.
I think in this scenario if you're seeing, all these people that these characters you're seeing, you can either look at it very simplistically or you can look at it all the layers that run right through the film.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, they are both. Actually, I've never propagated, we discussed in the makeup room, I have not propagated that what Dev and Maya are doing is right. I'm saying they are wrong. They should not have married in the first place in that sense because they were both, probably they should have thought a little harder.
Isn't it closer to say there is no right and wrong?
No, I'm not saying, that I said, rishton mein sahi galat nahi hota hai answer, but I'm not proper, there is a kind of a feeling that maybe, am I kind of endorsing infidelity? That's what I'm trying to correct here. No, I'm not doing
But you're ambivalent about it.
Well, I'm trying to say that this happens. I'm non-judgmental
You're not
at all.
judgmental.
No, the film is non-judgmental.
I just, did you have any kids?
Who are you talking to? Oh, let me just come back there. Yeah.
While you're on the topic, it's an excellent question. I had no kids for 12 years. Now I have a beautiful daughter of 13 years who I have adopted. So that keeps the tension off also.
See, I told Karan when I'm listening to the happy marriage, I'm not being a cynic. I said there's a lot of love because they don't have children. And honest to God, I'll tell you, it brings you closer. And but see, I'm an observer. I don't know
Oh my God. This is so unbelievable.
these two people. And I'm sitting here, the first thing I told Karan is, they won't have children. And it's not that it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think just taking it out, unlike our characters perhaps in our film, or some other films when they show, I think it's wonderful. And I think also, somewhere, let's be realistic, I'm married for 16 years now, so I'll be reaching inshallah where you have. But somewhere down the line, it sounds nice. Not in your case, please, I'm just asking because you brought up you said it. But it is easier when the marriage is happy to say, if he cheats, I will also cheat, or I'll agree that she can be cheating. But when you cheat, it doesn't become easy. Oh, so you cheated? Monday, Thursday, I will go and cheat. Is that all right? It doesn't work out like this. And they're fortunate because they have so much love. I would pray for everyone to have as much love as they have or I have.
Are you morally ambivalent about infidelity?
If you ask me really, at the end of this film, I always build a character. The question that you were asking Karan just now. I am very clear, Dev and Maya do not live together for long.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. I think my character...
And why do you feel that?
I don't know. I just
too
don't
much of a mess,
There are lines in the film towards the end which he says to Maya, right at the end when he goes down on his bended knees, and he says, look, I'm not saying that we're going to have a great life, but at least we'll have a life, is what he says. He says, no, most couples share their sorrow and happiness, I want to share my punishment.
Yeah, I like to tell her that it's not, if I show that they're not happy, you have an ending, but relationships don't have an ending. They are ongoing
Always
processes.
in the middle.
They're all ongoing processes. They will last together for another 75 years, inshallah. But you don't know what is to happen tomorrow. You have to
can I
understand.
get you in? We deal as a society with infidelity in so many different ways. We deal with saying it's wrong. We deal with saying it's messy. So maybe these guys don't have a happy life. We deal by saying, who are we to judge? We deal by saying, even if he cheats, I'll stay with him. We deal by saying, I'll slap you, get out of my house. Have we learned to look at adultery, infidelity, sexual promiscuity in the eye, or are we still a society in denial?
No, I think the two words that keep coming up. The D word, of course, divorce, and the C word, which came up when they talked about commitment. Any relationship, whether it's between colleagues, professionals, husband, wife, children, everything hinges around how committed you are to it. And what's missing today in today's generation, why we see so many marriages breaking up, is it's a very commitment-phobic generation. And we're looking for those escape routes. We're looking for those trap doors to open. We're looking for outs. Whereas I think the previous generation was looking to see how they could cement a relationship and keep it together.
And which one makes you more comfortable?
Well, I think that there's nothing to replace commitment, frankly. You've got to want to be married. You've got to believe in marriage. You've got to want it passionately for yourself. If you don't, it's better to be clear-sighted about it and say it's not something that works for me and stay single. I think that's a much more honest and practical way of handling your life than getting into something with ambiguous feelings one way or the other and not enough commitment to the institution of marriage itself.
Sunita, once again, actually, Sunita, if I can get you in, when Priya came to you and she spoke about abuse, even then you didn't immediately say walk out. So when people come to you and talk about infidelity, by men and women, I mean, you know, in the 70s, the films would only be about male infidelity. I mean, today we can finally look at both men and women who could stray for whatever reasons. Do you believe or do you counsel people for that to be enough of a reason to end relationships?
Okay, let me share something with you. 80% of people who come to me come with relationship problems. Of the 80%, 50% is infidelity. A wife always knows when the husband is cheating.
She may not know when his wife is cheating.
No, they don't. You know, men are pretty dumb. Damn, all you guys.
Oh God. This gesture of his. I can watch it over and over again.
Shahrukh, did you feel just a trifle worried there for a bit?
I mean, weak men, poor guys, suffering knows very well is me. So if she's cheating on anyone, it's with me.
And should we ask more about that? All right, Sunita, back to you.
That is a fact. Women are very intuitive and instinctive, so they catch on very fast. Small behavior patterns and all of that, and of course the passion is decreasing, all of that. They pick up the vibes very fast. And the funny part is women can, you know, withhold information, emotions, all of that far better than a guy can. So when they come up to me,
50% cases?
50% is, as far as possible, make the marriage work. Because I've seen people divorced and miserable after divorce.
So cheating for you
is
not enough of a reason to walk out?
No, it's not. Because everyone cheats.
Everyone
cheats. Name me one person who hasn't cheated with opportunities. Lack of, you know, they say lack of opportunities is a very, very good reason why you remain faithful.
That's a trick question.
Yeah.
So name me one person who hasn't cheated.
Everybody cheats. Everybody cheats if they can get away with it.
So if they can do it without being caught,
absolutely. Absolutely.
We'd all do it, is what you're saying.
We'll all do it. The best have done it. And I've witnessed to too many of them.
Okay.
Are you assuming that I'm not caught, that's all? Are you insinuating that?
I make no assumptions. I just think it's interesting because it's such a different view.
Balka, it's a very volatile subject to begin with. Marriage is a very volatile subject. And most people immediately start universalizing marriage and then bringing it to their very personal experience and working backwards. And infidelity, I think, in today's context is really a non-issue. Because people are equating quality. It's a non-issue. It's a non-issue.
Meaning what?
For young marriages, they're not obsessed with the idea of adultery and infidelity, just as they're craving for what they call a quality of life. It's a lifestyle option. It sounds horrible.
It sounds
That's what it has become. It's horrendous. That's what it is. Quality of life, quality of marriage. Is infidelity enough to walk out of a bad marriage? I think a lot of 20-somethings, a lot of 30-somethings would laugh at the suggestion. They'd say, are you crazy? You think I'm going to give up the lifestyle that I know because my husband's straying or my wife is straying? And that is the uncomfortable truth. And I think Karan has dealt with that in his own way by bringing it out into the open and not sweeping it under the carpet.
I want to come back to Shahrukh because I didn't. It wasn't that I was making any insinuation. No. It wasn't that I was making any insinuation. I just thought that she's so bold about the fact that everybody cheats. Shobha is almost adding to that and saying everybody cheats, and so what? Is it really that simple?
They're both cheating.
They're both cheating. 20-something girls, very clear to define the
I think I'll just make this very
target
clear.
age.
One, out of this discussion, I'm pro-marriage. Let me make this clear because I think it's a good institution. It may work for some, may not work for some. All institutions don't work for everyone, so it cannot work for some. And what Karan has brought forth in his film is one of the aspects of this institution not working, and one of the steps you might take. One of the steps. You may not have to take these steps. That's why it should not have this kind of controversy. Are you saying infidelity is good? I think the commitment of marriage is not between two people. The commitment to marry is with you. You make the commitment to yourself. Am I going to work out and get a 21-inch bicep? It is your own commitment. Am I going to get married? And it entails that I openly, perhaps, cannot vouch for infidelity after this, cannot start talking about it. I may sway. But am I liking a lot more partners than one? I do. Let's not get into marriage. See, it's a commitment to yourself to begin with. A lot of us, because of the society we live in, parental pressure, peer pressure, work pressure, just the fact that in India, marriage is considered a great thing to do. We all are supposed to do it after a certain age. That's why Shadi.com. I mean, genuinely. And that's why we do. So sometimes we take those decisions and we have not made that commitment to ourselves. And then we
haven't understood what it means.
We haven't understand.
Yeah.
And then lack of communication happens. Lonely drives on Marine Drive happens. No holding hand happens. And sometimes wife beating happens.
Yeah.
And when this comes through, it's one of the things that could have happened just like in Karan's film. Maybe it is a point of view which Karan has done, and as Shobha very rightly said, you go to a 20-year-old or 21-year-old today and ask them, and we'll be shocked like you are. I am. Are you saying infinite? Oh wow, man. Oh, we can work this out in a marriage. See, if I suddenly today announce all marriages, everything remains the same. Couples, by the way, you can. One Sundays, you're allowed to make love to somebody else. I think it will become a better marriage. Maybe. So, a lot of people will come into it. This is Sunday, it's not Sunday, darling, I'm not there, I'm going to meet Ramesh. And the other guy, I mean, if it works out like this, it won't. It will never happen. And that's why the commitment to yourself is important. And if you believe in a commitment to yourself, please believe in marriage. Otherwise,
Again.
like Karan said,
I couldn't agree more, Barkha.
How beautifully he explained. I loved and agree with the commitment to yourself part very much.
Shobha perhaps was very interested in what you said. I just want to put it to the audience. I mean, the two women, interestingly, on the panel, or two of the three women say cheating's a non-issue in 2006, so not enough of a reason for enough people. Perhaps it is for Shahrukh, perhaps it is for me, perhaps it is for Karan, but generationally you're saying that's changing.
Generationally it has changed radically.
All right. Those of you here in the audience who think that cheating's not enough of a reason to walk out of your marriages, raise your hand. Not enough of a reason. And there's only 3 hands, and this is maybe the wrong age profile but someone who thinks it's not enough of a reason. Let's hear why.
No, because I just think it's if it's natural and it happens, I wouldn't walk out. I've been married 37 years and I wouldn't walk out of a marriage just because my husband, went off once or twice. I wouldn't.
No, is it because
I love him too much.
37 years or in the first 2 years also?
First 2 years, maybe.
First 2 years,
maybe.
Could be a problem first.
So you could get used to a
I mean,
relationship.
now if a husband goes out, it's like sort of compliment, yeah? Oh, we're still doing it, it's cool.
Okay, what do you want to say?
An isolated incident of infidelity, 1 or 2, can at the best be termed as minor flirtations.
Really?
Yes. The spouses know about the minor flirtations at the office. Or
Men or women?
Men or women.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the age groups of 20s and 30s. As Shahrukh rightly said, in the first year or second year or third year of marriage. And I think they are looking at it as minor flirtations and they don't let it break their relationship.
Okay.
There has to be something more strong than the minor flirtations to walk out of the marriage.
So things may be changing and we've kind of
They have changed, Barkha. That is the important, points that we need to address and we need to acknowledge that a lot of sweeping social change has taken place in the last 10 years. And my book is completely pro-marriage and 100% pro-fidelity. Because I don't believe you can be a little unfaithful just like you can't be a little pregnant. You're either unfaithful or you're not. Like you're either one, and there's no such thing as one night stand. Yeah.
Why do you say that? Because Shahrukh's character and Rani's character, do you assume that they will cheat herever after?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, you never know where the relationship will go.
You would, right? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm not making any sweeping moral statements about Dev and Maya because I think they're flawed people. They've taken they've taken their great paths. They lived a great life. Who knows what will happen with Dev and Maya? I mean, I don't know. Shahrukh has a belief that Dev and Maya would be unhappy when they go outside there because his son in the film would never forgive him.
And your son?
And his son would hate him. His son would grow up to hate him. I have a feeling that they would basically, I believe, and it's a line that maybe now after hearing Anjali, I feel I should have had. My last line was, and I cut it out suddenly because all my romantic assistants who believe in the love and romance of Dev and Maya, and today I'm glad I had the opportunity, but the last lines were Shahrukh's voiceover. He said, "शादी की बुनियाद बेइंतहा मोहब्बत होनी चाहिए और कुछ नहीं, क्योंकि अगर बुनियाद गलत हो तो रिश्ते टूट जाते हैं। सालों बाद हमें मोहब्बत की मंजिल मिली, पर अक्सर ये ख्याल आते हैं कि काश इस मोहब्बत के रास्ते टूटे हुए दिलों से ना गुजरे होते." And then he had a line, "Trust me, you don't want to be Dev and you don't want to be Maya." But the last,
I insisted on that.
I cut that last line because I had
people of 20 years old. She's right. See, now everything is coming into play.
I had the Shobha. I had an assistant, Lot 6, and all in the 20s, believing in the power of even this. And they said, "Don't do this. How can you do this?"
Sorry, once again, I just want to let you finish your sentence. You wanted that line in, but you also believe that the son won't forgive your son in the film.
He should not forgive me. He should not forgive me.
But should
you can't just say, look at a guy.
Dev and Maya may be half happy and half very unhappy. They'd be miserable.
I think it is wrong.
Once again, I just want to complete this thing.
An innocent baby, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old. I have children, so I talk like this, and I speak for every father and mother maybe in that sense. You can't just tell us, try not to hate me. Then what should I do? Love you, father?
But should people just stay together for their kids?
No, they should have another...
That's also a point I made in the film where Preeti says, I'm not one of those women who use my children as an excuse to stay back.
But you seem to believe that.
I would stay, yes.
You would stay for
I
the
think
kids.
it is important.
All right.
Anjali,
once again, I need to take a break. After the break, in our last segment, when is enough enough? This Nibhana concept. When does our panel believe and our audience believe that that's a concept that can be abandoned? Is it based on cheating? Is it based on abuse? Is it based on your children growing up? You have so many marriages where suddenly the kids grow up and marriages come apart. We look at that after the break. Welcome back to We the People. In this last segment, when is enough enough? Everybody's spoken about the need for commitment, but the problem is nobody quite agrees when it's okay to break that commitment for different strokes for different folks. As they say, there's a question here for Karan and Shahrukh. Go ahead.
Okay, how do unhappy parents bring up happy children? What do your children look up to?
I don't think unhappy parents can bring up happy children.
So then, what? If you're unhappy in a marriage and you're staying for your kids, then how does that work?
Ma'am, what I honestly tell you, I mean, I wish it was so black and white and so simple.
It isn't.
It's like life. Relationships are like life. They can't be so black and white. We don't work together, let's leave, and somehow still bring happiness. There is going to be unhappiness whether you leave them or you don't leave them. Then the degree has to be decided. And like I said, correctly, this is my line for this film which I told Karan, different strokes for different folks. You have to work it out. I think unhappy parents, either ways, whether they leave or stay together, will not bring up proper happy children either.
I want to get at Shobha at this point to join on your personal experience, because there's so much talk about not wanting to leave for the kids. You're somebody who did actually have a second marriage where you have children of your own, your husband's children, and then your collective children. How has that experiment worked for you?
I think I'm really exceptionally fortunate, and if I may add, I was very sensitive and sensitized to what I was putting my foot into and what I was doing, and I wouldn't give the credit to myself and say, oh, I've been amazing in what I've done. I think it was my circumstances which were really amazing, and the support system that I had with my previous family. I continue to have the best rapport with them, and all those involved, all the various players involved in this decision were not just compassionate, but also highly intelligent.
So would you say you were an exception?
I would definitely say that, and I would never recommend this to anybody, because their life is not my life.
So when you listen to Shahrukh
my life happen
you
for
can't
myself.
just walk out when they're kids.
Definitely not. Definitely not. It's never in the interest of children. You're committed. You've brought them into the world. You stay committed. you stay committed. Unless your circumstances are extraordinary and you are in an exceptional circumstances yourself, that you can make it work whichever way it goes.
So, Sunita, I find that commitment seems to be redefined on this panel, because it seems to be that commitment means not just that conventional commitment that you won't stray, but that even if you do stray, you remain committed to the larger cause.
Absolutely. And people who get into other relationships, or you're the other woman or the other man, are never really happy, because society will not let you be happy in a very strange way. You're never allowed to forget that you did something wrong. Your own people will tell you that. I've had people coming and crying, am I a bad person? I'm with a married man. Did I do something wrong? Am I a bitch? Am I this? Am I that? And then there's a whole lot of psychological play that goes on, you know. So commitment is very, very important. But unless, like, battered women or, you know, something really gruesome, drastic, then of course you take a call. But as far as commitment goes, yes, you have to stay.
All right, before we take last comments from our panelists, there is a young person here who's not married, who has a very important question.
I'm 18 now. I suppose I have a lot of time left. And good marriages are seen as an exception rather than the rule. I just want to ask all of you, is it all worth it? Should I get married when I...
100% yes. If you want it for yourself, if you believe in it and are ready to commit, definitely there can't be anything more fulfilling in life than sharing it with someone who loves you, who understands you, and who shares it with you. You find the right person, and God bless you, I hope you do.
And Karan, you haven't got married, and you've said in many interviews that you're completely cynical about the institution.
Well, I'm not cynical per se about myself. I've become slightly cynical about things that I've heard around me, and, you know, just conversations I've had. And I have a different theory. I mean, like, I'm going back to what the lady there said, or what Shobha just said, that I don't understand. I understand commitment. I understand how important it is. But I feel if there are parents that are unhappy, so unhappy, I'm not so sure if that unhappiness is going to make life a beautiful place for that child. It's going to in any case penetrate through the child's psyche. And then what happens? So I believe that if you can make an amicable split because you're unhappy, then I think your child will be much better off than witnessing their parents unhappy.
So you and Shahrukh don't actually see this the same way?
I don't. In the sense, I don't know what I'm talking about. People who can be amicably settled, even though they're unhappy. Yes, if it becomes really nasty and violent and bitter, then those have other issues the child has. But if I feel if two people, like you asked, are completely unhappy and they know that they're just best apart, then I feel the child is definitely also happier with one of the spouses then, one of the parents. And then, because the amicable nature of the couple will definitely create some kind of an environment. It will definitely.
The emphasis is on an amicable and intelligent way of managing your life.
But when
and also, I think everybody also deserves a second chance.
For Preeti and Abhishek, it takes them 3 years.
But what is worse is having the child be in an unhappy house. I mean, I just feel there's nothing worse for the psyche of the child being subjected to parental pressure, parent fights, you know, their disharmony, their incompatibility. I can just imagine a child, and I've known children and I've known friends who have been in situations like that, who've grown up totally messed up because their parents didn't take the right decision at the right time. They just tried to pull it off, nibhana, as they say. But nibhana sometimes doesn't make any sense.
Is there anyone in this audience who actually saw the film and it changed their mind about marriage? I mean, do we really take cinema that seriously? Is there anyone who saw the film and it's, you know, you had a certain view before the film and you kind of changed it after? Yeah.
I seriously thought that we shouldn't get into this marriage thing because, you know, this Indian society forces you into marriage first. Later, when you want to split, it is so damn difficult to split later. And even if you have kids, then after having kids, then kids become your liability when you want to split. So what is the whole thing about why better not get married and enjoy your life peacefully?
He's going to grow up and be Karan Johar. What's your final take? You said you tell us at the end of the show, listening to everybody, whether you think you're going to go for it or not. Enlist on your own website.
So I'm looking for advice myself. But having said that, let me go on a limb.
Yeah.
If you believe, as I do, in the philosophy that life is about growth, I think marriage is a must, because not just because it helps my business, but it's a must because it's a phase of growth for your life, and whether it works or not, it's still going to help grow you. So I come from that school of thought.
And so what are you waiting for?
I recommend marriage, except for, there are outliers, there are boundary lines, and there are outliers, right? For certain people, it's absolutely a no-no, but for most people, I think marriage does work in a certain way to help grow you as an individual.
Okay, I'm going to give the final word to you, Shahrukh. You've heard a lot of things. You made this interesting point earlier about how you felt maybe you were a little away from all these concerns in your own life. Listening to all these people talk, Two questions. One, if you had to do the film all over again, you said you would include that last line. Is there anything else you'd like to do differently in the film?
No. I mean, just as an actor, no. I mean, even the line, when everybody has decided, जब बहुत सारे लोगों ने ये decision लिया है, good thinking लोगों ने, then I'm sure there must be another take to it than I have. And I would like to just say this, emotionally and jazbaat wise, I think you have to nibhao and stick together. Intellectually and mind wise, you have to have an amicable decision of separating. Now, जो जज्बाती है, वो निभाएंगे. जो जज्बाती नहीं है, the ones who are not going to think emotionally, who are going to be maybe a little more intellectual and give it thought. From the head, it says separative things are not working out. The heart will always tell you, no, stick it together. So it depends on each individual person and the two individuals who are stuck in this. I would not make this film any differently. Like he said, I will endorse, except Karan and that young man. I think you should marry. You should give it a shot. And when I say it like this, it does not mean I'm being flippant. Ki yaar, kar lo, dekho kya hota hai. You know, even a small, and today is a business world, so I'll say, a joint venture has a lot of problems. Marriages are going to have even more. When you wake up in the morning with the person you love, sunlight is not coming in like the movies is. The hair is not in place, dude. It looks really strange. We all know that. And our mouth smells awful. And everything goes wrong. But you have to start loving all that. And if emotionally you're going to stick to it, please marry. Intellectually, yes, I'm also well read. I know a lot of people. And there is no one word that you can say for relationships. Hona chahiye, nibhana chahiye, todna chahiye, bhag jana chahiye. This film is a point of view. Her book is a point of view, which talks about spouses and the beauty of marriage. She has, and all of us here in this room would love, including Shadi.com, would love marriages to work and prosper. But suppose they don't, it's unfortunate, but we need to give it a shot.
All right, with that thought, actually, we have to, if there's one thing I think we all agree about, it is that relationships are lived in what's called the gray zone. And I don't think there are any easy answers. I think all we've agreed on is that it's deeply individual. Some of you may be right for marriage, some of you may not be, some of you may change the rules. I think the rules are in the process of being rewritten. I just want to say a big thank you to our entire panel for sharing their stories, and also to the people in the audience for talking about their lives so openly, because one of the things we do really badly is be honest about ourselves. And I think that's what people here were willing to do today. And I think if there's one thing, as Shahrukh Khan said today, that we do know, real lives are lived in that space between the head and the heart. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll try to keep my thoughts about this topic to myself. I just want to say that I'm very happy that I found this video and watched it. The discussion itself was very interesting, but I of course enjoyed Shahrukh Khan's presence there more than everything. His statement at the very beginning of the program where he said that people made issue of the infidelity in Kang mostly because it wasn't only Dev who cheated was so relevant. The fact that Maya also cheated on his husband may have caused all the disturbances. It is how the society is, unfortunately. Though it was a very serious discussion about very serious issues, Shahrukh Khan's sense of humor was unbelievable. As I always say, he is able to be funny in any situation, especially when he said, "I have made my career out of running after other men's wives or girlfriends," and when he asked a lady if that was one of those programs where people fought with each other. There were several hilarious Shahrukh Khan moments within the program. But what impressed me the most was how he felt bad after hearing a lady's story about being beaten up by his husband. As he himself mentioned, he looked like he was feeling like crying. But still he was able to cheer up and make people laugh. I loved his reaction about the statement saying that everybody cheats. That was hilarious. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you.